So, this video is gonna take a minute. It's Throwback Thursday and it's Halloween, Samhain. A lot of people take today to think about their ancestors. I never really done that before. I always just dressed up and went out looking for candy. But I don't need candy anymore, and people ask me if my everyday clothes are Halloween costumes, so I could go out and not get messed with today. But it's kind of bitter. Because I should be able to go out any day. I'll probably go grocery shopping. But I'm going to do something different today. It's Throwback Thursday, right? So, I'll show y'all some pictures of my parents, grandparents. This is my grandfather and my step-grandma. On my mom's side. I haven't seen most of these people in a very, very long time. I don't know how they'll feel about being featured here. You know, if any of y'all has a problem, you know, we can talk about that. Just let me know. But that's my Grandpa Wes, my Grandma Connie. And I think it's kind of interesting that both my parents were divorced and remarried. This is a Halloween picture of my mom from a long time ago. She has kind of the same, she has short haircut a lot, and, you know, almost boyish face. She's very, very beautiful and very photogenic. There are many better photos of her, but this one was right here, and she's wearing something for Halloween, so I figured I'd show it. And I just thought it was interesting, though, that I could see some of the boyishness in her face that I never really noticed that before, because she's very femme. Here's a picture of my dad. There's lots of better pictures. It's almost better. This is a decent picture, but this is when they lived in Oklahoma City. From when I was a kid. I was probably around 5 when this was taken. And my dad probably, he would have been playing the Nintendo. Now that I look at this old picture of him from when he was younger, he freaking looks exactly like the preacher from the church that I was involved in, the cult that I was involved in my late teens and early 20s. As a very young adult. That's probably all the pictures of ancestors that I had in this. Here, but I think of ancestors as being somewhat different, because I know that they're almost like influences. Here's a picture of my dad with me in his lap. Oh, I don't know if that's me or if that's my brother. I think that's me. Not sure. Yeah, we got cousins and whatnot, but I didn't spend a lot of time with these people. But I guess I would consider ancestors for certain to be major influencers in your life. Obviously, my parents are the ones I spent the most time with. My dad's a videographer and a photographer. So am I. But not by profession. I'm just an amateur photographer and videographer. But my dad, obviously. So, that's pretty much it for those. But I want to talk about major inspirations in my life, you know. I want to mention the people that have really, really helped me. The resources that I've had, the people that have loved me, and people that have been amazing and educational. You know, I want to mention, I want to, talk about these as resources for other people. Because I want to be grateful for everything that I've had to get me where I am. Because I feel like, dang, how is it that a little over a year ago I was writing that kind of stuff in my journal, and now I'm just doing it as amazing as I am? I have to be really grateful and not take it for granted. And I can do it right here, where I can tell people all of the resources that are out there that I've taken advantage of, so that they can take advantage of resources that are available. So, I definitely want to thank Teal Swan for all of her amazing work. During my break I took another 28-day break in the spring from medical marijuana, and during that time, I pretty much binge watched Teal Swan. Everything she had on trauma, I think, and mental health and personality disorders, and I didn't get a whole lot into her metaphysical stuff yet, because that's not what I was looking to watch from her. That wasn't quite what was really unique about her material. But her videos are absolutely amazing. I have a lot of my own particular ways of doing things with trauma, but her videos have definitely, even as much work as I had done by the time I watched them, still now, today, I'm really, really, really being helped by her work. And I know that sounds silly, because I'm freshly starting to recover, and it's oh, I just don't want to die, but I can't tell you how big that is. I've wanted to die my entire life. I haven't wanted to exist. And now I want to exist. I'm like, well, I'd like to thank the Academy. I survived. I'm here. Is everyone ready to welcome me now? It's just like, oh, I'm going to live? Wow, that's interesting. Like, I just want to tell everyone. I feel like I did this huge thing. And it's like, no, all my problems aren't over. But, holy shit, like, what it took to get here was just out of this world, a lot of work, and I want to share what I did. And, I feel, I feel like I have some things to say about it, to get from that place to where I am now, of where I feel like I could handle damn near anything, and I think of life as a game, and it's interesting, and I'm more likely to feel the pain and be with it, and almost examine the pain and be curious about the pain, and look at it all from all of its different angles, and taste the pain and feel the pain and love the pain, than I am to kill myself out of any kind of an emotional reaction ever again. So it's been amazing to watch Teal Swan and to work with Teal Swan. This is going to sound really odd, but I feel like she visited me, like telepathically. I saw her in a vision, and I heard her counseling me in my head for some time, very directly. It was for a period of about 5 days in April, and then she started giving me a hand, like to say no more, that I needed a break. And I was like, okay. And she helped me a lot. She helped me go out really as myself, because at the time I was wearing dresses at home, but I was going out dressed, quote unquote, presenting as a man in public. Because I don't know why. I'm just scratching my foot. These straps on these shoes are a little itchy. I'm a little cold. I feel like by thanking Teal Swan that I almost like tapped into that channel, and she influenced me on a subconscious level, which caused me to talk about all of that stuff, which is kind of interesting. I feel like I inadvertently, with marijuana, programmed her as my mother in some ways, for a while. Now I feel like I'm reconnecting back, and she still has a surrogate mother kind of. I have those feelings about her, but it's not like I channeled her the way I did before. I feel like people literally channeled their parents and their ancestors. Then it doesn't start after they're dead. All the people I showed you pictures of are alive, as far as I know. And people talk about, ancestors, dead people. Yeah, dead ancestors are alive. I'm not quite an ancestor. I would have been had I had a kid. I got pregnant. I don't know if that makes me. I don't know. I think influencers as well, but we're all ancestors. And we can all channel each other. That's what telepathy is. And I feel like when we hear the voice of our parents in our head, like a memory, we're channeling our ancestors. And wow, that's interesting. I didn't have a great relationship with my parents at all. I hate to talk about it. Mostly because I'm afraid that they'll watch and that they'll be upset. That I aired the dirty laundry or whatever. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know whether that's legitimate or not. I'm interested in feedback from friends about that. Because, I'd like to talk about it. But on the other hand, do I really need people, family in my face about it? No. And I have no way of knowing whether anybody could be checking out my Instagram. You know what I mean? So, another person that has really, really helped is Victor Odo. He's another YouTuber, and he has a lot of topics about just its spiritual awakening topics. I would say mental health. He talks about yoga. I haven't watched his yoga stuff. I'll be honest. I'm not a super grounded physical individual. There are kinds of exercise that I like, but it has to be mentally exercising. I used to really enjoy doing Dance Revolution because it got me moving around and it was very stompy. But there was music and you have to follow the instructions on the screen, and it's a challenge against yourself. So, I guess I just defined the parameters of what kind of exercise maybe I would like to do. Thanks, Vic. So I just need to find exercise like that. Something that gives you feedback, something that incorporates music that's fun to play. So, everybody could use a game like that. DDR was a little simplistic. It kind of screwed up my knees. That's why I don't just play it. But it sure was fantastic cardio, and I had calves of steel as a young adult. It was ridiculous. But I really like Vic's energy reports. He really, right now, that's basically what he's been doing, is releasing seasonal energy reports as far as YouTube goes. But I guess he's working on a book, and he's had a little bit more of a presence on Instagram, and I think he just stopped doing personal consultations. But all his stuff on YouTube is absolutely really great. I like how vulnerable he gets on camera. That he doesn't have a problem crying on camera. That has happened at least once or twice, where he gets choked up right there on camera. And I really admire that, because that, I don't know that he really talks about toxic masculinity, but he is very, very, very sensitive. And he doesn't have a problem getting choked up on camera and posting it to YouTube. Like, that's a stand against toxic masculinity in my book, to do that. And that's important to me. That someone is really, really, really sensitive and vulnerable and real right there on their channel on YouTube or on whatever medium they're using. And he talks about all kinds of stuff, and he talks very genuinely regarding anxiety and mental breakdowns and tears on the floor. Like, the way he says it, for me, it was, for a long time, it was hard for me to take as seriously as genuinely as it is, because he's always reporting on it in hindsight, and in hindsight you can, especially if you have healed, you can look at it as going, oh my god, this is so absurd, and so you can laugh at it a little bit. And so I realize that a lot of that happens here when I'm on camera, and when I'm talking about suicidality, or when I'm talking about my paranoia, especially when I'm talking about, I thought my therapist was a spy. It might almost sound as like a joke, because now I look back at it and it's, I can see how sick I was, but at the time it was actually terrifying. It's actually terrifying. It's actually highly distressing. And so, just recognize that a lot of times when people, and I'm trying to recognize that whenever people talk about their past, like, they don't necessarily display the same emotions they had at the same time that they were having when they were having that event, because they processed the emotion. So it can be easy to look at somebody like Victor or Ralph Smart or Chill Swan or anybody and go, what have they, clearly what they went through wasn't that bad, because look at where they are. They're obviously, doing fantastic. But, when people look back at and talk about what they went through, assuming they actually have healed themselves, are going to have a totally different way of talking about it than someone who hasn't gotten a lot better. So someone who's really in recovery, or even considers themselves recovered, if that's even a thing, like, consider it not to affect them anymore at all. I'm not sure that's real. But they might talk about their problems in a completely different light than someone who's currently struggling with it. And I think that's important for people who are currently struggling to recognize, because it's like, we all need to support each other, and we need support from people who are recovering and who are looking at the problems in a different light. But we need to not take it as an insult from them. If I'm struggling from anxiety and I'm getting advice from someone who has anxiety, and they are looking at the anxiety in a completely different light, and I almost find it kind of annoying, almost like they're not taking me seriously. I need to understand that it's not that they're not taking me seriously. It's not that they don't understand. It's not that they don't feel how anxious I am. It's that they literally have a more healed perspective from which to look at the anxiety. And that's why they're telling me this. And I'm saying that for me, and I'm saying that for anyone watching that hears me talk about anxiety, because it's like, it's a spectrum. I still experience anxiety, but there's so much paranoia and anxiety that I don't experience anymore, that when I come across people who are really anxious, I think sometimes I come across as this big enthusiastic clown that's like, you don't need to worry about anything ever, guys. and like, maybe seem like I've never had anxiety a day in my life, but the truth is that I know exactly how you're feeling right now, and I'm trying to offer you a different way of looking at this. So, but I understand that you can't go from A to Z instantaneously, though. But, you know, at the end of the day, for me, it's also important for my sanity to choose to look at it in the way that I do and not take on that anxiety from the people that I spend time around. So I think we need to understand when people don't necessarily get involved in our anxiety. So I definitely want to talk about Ralph Smart as well. He was a fantastic YouTuber to watch. He has a YouTube Gold Award, and like, I'm happy that he likes to show it off. I think it's fantastic when people show off their awards and they're proud of themselves. But Ralph Smart is I like he's super positive, and he represents a great black role model, especially, I think. And he's a psychologist. He worked in schools working with children with ADHD for a while, but I guess that made him miserable, so he doesn't do that anymore. And now he goes online and makes inspirational videos, and he's got everything. I mean, you name it. He's got nerdy metaphysical content, to relationship advice, to financial advice, to, you know, everything. He's just, it's, you want to know about something, about what he thinks of the universe, regarding a given topic, and he's got a video on it, darn near, that's super positive, and that, you know, even if you don't immediately agree with him, there's probably going to be some useful information there. So, what's not to like? And his voice is super calming. He starts every video going, peace, infinite waters, diving deep. I love his intro. You know, every day I'm just like, ah. And it's just, the calmest thing during some really extremely scary, stressful periods in my life when I couldn't sleep and I was manic during these periods. The man that had most recently raped me was living next door to me, and I found myself dealing with that nightmare, and I couldn't sleep, would put his videos on quietly behind my pillow, and his voice just helped me go to sleep when I was, you know, staying up for 48 hours at a time because I was just paranoid out of my mind for good reason at that time. And I figured, you know, if I'm absorbing programming while I'm sleeping, it's probably good programming. So, that really helped me take care of myself at the time. But I also just watch his videos and actually listen to them, and he gives fantastic advice. And he has a really awesome Instagram channel as well, if you're not already following Infinite Waters. Definitely, he's fantastic. Follow him, because he's got really great content and interactive, like, you know, let's say, you know, your blessings are going to triple type 1111. I don't know. I love those. They feel good. He's the one. I feel like ancestors and pantheons are not just about dead people and entities that we would normally think of as gods. That we're gods. That I'm a god, a goddess, a goddess, and that Ralph Smart is a god, that Victor Olo is a god, that Teal Swan is a god, and that, and that, Adam from Sight Substance is a god, and that this is my personal pantheon, includes, these, along with Loki and Odin and Satan and Lucifer. So I have this personal pantheon that includes living, of course all of these entities are alive, but it includes human beings who are currently alive. Especially I like to include human beings who know their gods, and who know that they are God. Whether or not you add an S is up to you. At least I suspect, I'm pretty sure they know their God. And, there's another channel that I really, really like, but I got told to leave. I think I know why. I think I was too intense on there, and it wasn't necessarily 100% appropriate. I've learned a lot of lessons about it. I don't, he talked to me about it in private. I apologized in private. I don't know whether talking about it in public is necessarily appropriate, or whether it would actually bring him more grief, so I'm not going to, essentially. So, but I sure would like to thank this other channel if I could, and if he happens to watch this, or any of his followers happen to watch it, they probably know who I'm talking about, so I do want to thank you for all the help. Epic Lifestyles is the Instagram, and he makes some fantastic jewelry, that's for sure. I do still occasionally buy jewelry from him, because I know he runs a fantastic channel, and a fantastic YouTube channel, and he makes high quality jewelry. Oopsie. This anklet is from Epic Lifestyles. And, it's really, really, really helped me ground myself, I could say, manifest myself, and really open up my throat chakra. It has a lot of lapis, lava stone, pyrite, and this is prenite. Oh, and that improves communication with guides, which is precisely what happened. I suddenly had extremely intimate contact with all of my guides. Loki. Let's just say that. Oh, excuse me. This is a fantastic anklet. I love it. Thank you. And I highly recommend his jewelry. I just bought another necklace from him. He recently came out with a video that said something like, fuck opinions, love transcends bodysuits and time. I was really proud of him for that video. I may as well say it's universal frequencies, but he is Rastafari, as far as I can tell, or has really, really strong Rastafari influences. And previously has had some homophobic kind of content, but I liked the rest of his content so much, and it was so helpful that, I continue to support him despite it, because I felt like overall he was doing an important job of releasing a lot of important information. But I did call him out on that, and got, kind of banned. But he recently had a video where he basically came out in support of queer folks. And I gotta say, I bawled my eyes out. I was really, really touched. And, whatever, he's, probably working on educating himself, which is fantastic. But, I have to recommend his channel, It's really great, regardless of whether he wants me around. For whatever reason that he still doesn't want me around, and that's his business. But, so he's Rastafari and openly in support of queer folks. And he has this metaphysical, esoteric channel. He's very technical, very analytical. Really speaks my language. That's why I like to watch it so much. Talks about crystals a lot and metaphysical concepts. Makes a lot of analogies. Talks openly about psychedelic use and spirituality, which I really appreciated. Consumes on and makes videos while bringing down the information, which I consider extremely helpful and vulnerable and pretty cool. Anyway, I like the channel. I like Victor Otto also talks about psychedelics. He's one of the other ones I really like because he talks about psychedelics. He talks about how mushroom use instigated his Kundalini experience, and that it happened all at once because he had taken mushrooms. I think it's important to talk about these things because I think for some people, especially maybe depending on genetics, I don't know. But a lot of people claim you can do it without drugs. But, Terence McKenna says the only thing that works is drugs. And I would tend to agree. That in a lot of cases, many people are so hurt. We need something to jar us open. To crack open our minds, because we've developed defenses. We've developed mental self-defenses. That's what ego, quote unquote, is. That we develop PTSD when an idea or a concept or a self-concept is attacked. We experience the same kind of fight or flight response that we would if we were experiencing a physical attack. This is called... There is a word for this. There's a phrase for this reaction. I don't remember what it is. I saw a little comic about it. It was very informative. So I'm going to tell you this isn't my original thought. But, so if someone tells you something that you agree with, you just agree with them. You just believe them. Whatever it is, it's along the lines of what you already think, so you just agree with them. But if someone tells you something that the implications would blow your entire cosmology or your ideology or your politics or something else apart, if it's really contrary, then you want all of the sources. Then you want to know, well, who said that? And give me all the evidence. Tell me. Now, this is something I'm as guilty of as anybody else. But this happens because this is exacerbated by trauma. This is exacerbated by PTSD, a lack of education, and lack of access to psychedelics, which heal trauma. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I really appreciate it when YouTubers and spiritual types talk openly about their psychedelic use. I want to take it in a different direction with my online presence. I want to talk openly about being psychotic. Because I hear so many spiritual teachers saying, they all have these phrases that in an insane world, the insane man is the sane man, and, whatever that is. I probably just said it backwards because I'm insane. But none of these people, to my knowledge, have ever actually been diagnosed by the Western mental health system and been treated for psychosis. None of them know what it's like to actually experience that, to actually be labeled as insane by Western society and receive the treatment of an insane person. So as much as this is a thank you, it's also a bit of a call-in of like, hey, let me tell you about what it's like to be insane. Because if you haven't been through the mental health system, you don't quite know what it's like to be insane. The mental health system is what defines what's insane. You can call yourself crazy, and your friends can say you're crazy, but until you've been locked in a padded room, like I have, you really can't call yourself crazy. I'm sorry. Not sorry. Because I could be held in a hospital for saying the same things that you say on YouTube. Because I've been held in a hospital multiple times before, kind of thing. That's the way it works. Because I don't have the support. Because I ended up so abused early on that I ended up in the mental health system as a kid, and I got funneled into this system. It's like, now that I got this label, no matter what I say, it's all going to be viewed as illness by the system. So I can watch these metaphysical channels all day long, but when I go to the hospital, if they ask, if I talk about this stuff, they certainly don't encourage it. And they certainly offer me antipsychotics. And I don't have access to the kinds of herbal treatments, crystals, anything like that while I'm there. Now, I will say, Portland's mental health system is the best mental health system that I have personally experienced. I've experienced it in Oklahoma. I didn't experience the mental health system in New Mexico. I did experience the school system. and I've experienced it in Las Vegas, and I've experienced it here in Portland. And Portland is pretty good. Like, they provide guided meditations. They provide art therapy. They provide, like, I just gotta say that everybody in the unit, especially at Providence, is just pretty freaking woke. Like, they weren't dicks to me. They were really great, for the most part. But on the other hand, you also attract what you are. And I saw these kinds of things happening where when I went in and I was actually in a horrible place because I was spiritually, metaphysically almost like dead. The treatment wasn't great. They did not treat me very well. But then when I went back in later after having this awakening, like, awakening doesn't necessarily it doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't necessarily come with everything you need. It doesn't appear to come with everything you need to care for yourself and stay alive. So I reached situations of such intense psychosis that I needed to go back to the hospital because I was under severe psychic attack and couldn't make food, and my apartment was so dirty I couldn't live in it and needed to be in the hospital. And I recovered and came back, and I'm doing much, much, much better. Like, got past that blockage and things are better now. But, like, during that time, I was in pretty darn good spirits for everything that had happened to me. Because it was, I had some misfortune. It was street harassment and a rape and just a bunch of stuff. I don't really want to talk about it. So, I was in pretty good spirits, and they were wonderful. They were wonderful. They never forced any medication on me. They did offer a lot. And you really can't have access to any herbal medication. You really can't have access to any crystals or any kind of, holistic medication. Anything you can do with your mind, you can do in a psych ward. But they take everything away from you. That's something that I need people to understand. When you talk about crazy people, when you talk about insane people, when you talk about people in the mental health system, we get locked in a place that tends to have fewer rights than people in prison. They take all your clothes away. You can't have anything with a string on it. You can't have pens. You don't get a real pen to journal with. It's this, they take the little inkwell out of the pen and then they put a silicone tubing on it so it's flexible. That way you can't stab anyone or hurt yourself with it. And it's a big pain in the butt to write with. Like, don't get me wrong, the hospital is amazing. I don't want to complain too much because compared to lobotomies and what they used to do with us 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, I can't complain. I'm doing amazing right now. But for people who literally have not experienced the mental health system to this level, it feels trite to never actually be mentioned except as these catchphrases, because it feels like this information regarding crystals, chanting, toning, work with pantheons, just everything. All of this side of looking at the universe, or as you call it, once you've exited the matrix or whatever, and you're looking at the universe from a completely different way, and you're managing your universe from that way, that needs to be marketed and directed at the mental health community in a very serious and well-researched, documented kind of fashion. That's what I want to do. I'm trying to manifest all the support that I need in order to make it happen. As well as, I'm on here working up my courage, learning how to be on camera and talk about these concepts, and trying to get organized is difficult for me. It's easier for me to come up here and just ramble than it is for me to organize a lecture. It's more spontaneous because I kind of say, fuck it, I'll just ramble at you, and then it's not as much pressure as it is to organize a video. But I would really like to see this information, especially packaged and language used and quote-unquote marketed towards people with psychosis and autism like myself. Because I found it, I don't want to say by accident. It was through the crystals. I don't know how else I would have found this whole world. But it transformed my paranoid psychosis, which was making my life absolutely miserable and making me want to kill myself. I could either kill myself because I was miserable with psychosis, or I could take pills that made the psychosis go away, that made me want to kill myself. Like, those were my options. And then I started working with crystals, and everything changed. And I suddenly found myself looking at these YouTube channels. It started with Psych Substance. And I definitely gotta thank Adam. Thank you, man. You're amazing. I freaking love your channel. Psych Substance is extremely important, and I need to mention it because it is all about how to take psychedelics safely. It is a harm reduction channel where he provides science-based information regarding psychedelics, dosages, how to measure it, how to test it, where to get your testing kit, what your setting should be like, how to be a trip sitter, on and on and on. Live, not live, but like, he takes videos of people's trips and then takes an interview of them afterwards. Like, they do an interview before, they do interviews throughout the trip, they do an interview afterwards, a week later, see how it affected them. So you can see what it's like to actually take the drug before you take it. This is life-saving information, and he makes no money from advertisements. Because advertisements don't want anything to do with a channel that is all about drugs. But he provides life-saving information. His channel is called Psych Substance, and I can't recommend it more. And he talks about his anxiety, and he has taken pharmaceuticals for his ADHD. So I definitely, I don't know, that gives him a special place in my heart, because I know that he has said that he has experienced what the mental health care system can be like firsthand. And, like, I don't know that he's experienced it as deeply as I have, but, he's experienced the mental health care system and the pharmaceuticals. And he talks about this on his channel. He also has a channel called Swim. That channel led me to a channel called Swim, where he talks about philosophy, all the things he's learned from the drugs. Essentially, it kind of looks like to me, which is amazing. I love his insights. They really, really transformed my mindset back in the beginning in January when I first started using the crystals. And then from there, I started listening to Terence McKenna. And that was like finding this huge part of myself that I missed so much. It was bizarre. I was like, this is like an older, smarter version of myself with better vocabulary that can actually articulate himself in an organized way. I loved listening to Terence McKenna. And when I listened to his trips, to his information regarding the trips on DMT, I knew exactly what he was talking about. It was bizarre. From my experiences with marijuana, I was like, how is it possible that I could know what he was talking about from just my experiences? But I experienced, because of my neurotype, very unusual things with marijuana. He talks about when he takes the DMT and he gets to the place and they greet him and they say, "We miss you," that they do that to me. They say that I talk to the same entities. When I'm taking marijuana, I'm talking to the same DMT entities. I don't know what else to call them, because he's kind of where I first discovered that anybody else talks to the same entities for certain. It was the first place I knew for sure that somebody else was interacting with these things. Because they say the exact same thing. "We miss you. We love you," and then they start, the whole trip starts and they start giving me all these downloads of information and having conversations with me and stuff. And I think that what he experienced on a higher dimensional level in a visual way, where he can essentially look an entire idea printed out in front of himself as this object, I receive as a download of information instead. That's just my theory. I haven't taken DMT. I'd like to take DMT. I don't have any DMT. I'm also, psychotic, and would like to make sure that I have manifested, a support system and that I'm well taken care of by the time I smoke DMT, because I don't know what's going to happen to my mind or how long it will last or anything, because marijuana does unusual things to me. So, but I feel like I know that I talk to the same entities, and I've channeled Terence McKenna before. And I would consider him to be an ancestor, because I've spent so much time listening to him, and so much of the way he thinks is part of the way I think now. His observation that science can only be used to document and explore the phenomena for which you can return to original conditions and repeat the experiment changed my entire way of thinking about the universe. I just assumed we could use science to explore everything. But it's true. You can't use the scientific method nearly as well. You can't use experimentation. You can use observation. Fossils. You can use science. It's different. That was, I just heard from. I have to mention Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's like looking at me and channeling him. I love watching Cosmos. I can't say how many times I've watched the documentary series Cosmos. That he's definitely a huge influence on my consciousness, and I have to honor him as an ancestor. I've got 30 seconds remaining. I will talk to y'all again in a little while about more about my ancestors. I love y'all. Live long and prosper.